All right. Well, guys, our feature presenters are great. They've been working with First Rate forever since First Rate was Tony and it's Dom and Kota. And I'd like to welcome you guys up to share your maintenance mastery with us. Oh yeah, and I forgot to say Property Maintenance Plus.
Yes,
Dom and Kota of Property Maintenance Plus. Thanks, guys.
thanks, Stacy. So thank you for having us. And she mentioned our company is Property Maintenance Plus, and we have been doing rental maintenance now, residential rental maintenance for about 20 years here in the Valley. We've had, fortunately, about half of our customers since day one. So kind of our motto or whatnot is we want to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. So we really strive to do that. The second thing is communication. One of the big things that people say, property managers and whatnot say is that we actually answer the phone, we answer the text, we answer the email. And oftentimes time is of the essence, so that is pretty important. It's also respectful. You know, if you know, we want people to know that they're important. We appreciate the work, we appreciate business, so on and so forth. So that's a little bit about us. And I'm going to look up at the board as my eyeballs are not as young as Kota's. So again, I went over a lot of this stuff already. We work, oftentimes we have people say, hey, you know, my neighbor needs a smoke detector battery replaced. We really don't do individual little stuff like that, little handyman, so to speak, for individual people, because we try to prioritize our availability for the property managers that, you know, have the properties and we need to be available for them if they have a situation. So if we're, I mean, just the way that our model, our business model is again, trying to cater to the property managers that have multiple properties. So we still do those onesie twosies, and honestly, it's more of a favor and things like that. Most of the time, we have no problem as long as we have bandwidth to accommodate that stuff. But anyway, so that's that. We started out 20-ish years ago doing residential rental property maintenance, and the building you're sitting in, which is First Rate Property Management, that was our first customer way back in the day. And since then, we have grown the rental maintenance to a select few property managers, and fortunately, we've had the we've been able to kind of pick and choose who we work for. We want to work for property managers or owners that allow us to make the repairs and do things right while still keeping your wallet in mind. And same thing with on the tenant side. You know, we're not necessarily pro owner or pro tenant, but we try to find that balance because I think most of us have all been tenants too, and it's kind of important to be fair on that side, and again, not just favor one side or the other. We had the opportunity to start doing some flips for big investment companies from out of state, and they had us doing crazy volumes, and we took that on and just went kaboom. And like a lot of things, the ball starts rolling, the snowball starts rolling downhill, and pretty soon, I mean, I think the biggest year we flipped 86 or 87 houses, and they were single family homes that these investors would just buy at foreclosures. You guys may be familiar with that, maybe not. Before I got hooked up with these people, I had no idea how any of it worked, but basically they go to auctions, and it was crazy. Every day there's multiple auctions, 3 or 4 different auctions happening 5 days a week, and there was 5 to 20 properties going to auction and all this. Anyway, it was just complete chaos, and we didn't even realize what was happening. How things, we were just going with the flow, and as quick as we could get them done, quick as we could accommodate, they would throw us more, and everything was going good, other than, the stress level and 24/7 chaos. Then COVID came around and the auctions didn't happen anymore. Well, at this time, doing that volume, we switched from rental maintenance, and we kept doing the rental. We kept first rate and kept our bread and butter property managers that we had from day one. But the big money and the big volume and the big stress and the big everything was taken up with those investments, or those investors rather, with these flips. Then pretty much a light switch hit. When COVID happened, they quit kicking people out of the properties. These investors, were going to auctions, and everybody's fighting over one property 3 days a week, where it was, 5 to 20, 5 days a week. So they couldn't acquire the properties. And then we switched gears back, said, you know what? They pulled out. Okay, we're going to start to grow our rental property maintenance, focus back on that again. So now, again, that's our main priority. And again, we've been blessed. We've learned a lot. Stacy and I had kind of brainstormed about what kind of tips on flipping houses and what sort of cost effective, what gets the most bang for the buck and all that. And I'm out of that. We're out of that loop, so to speak, now. But again, I'd be happy to chat. We did probably just under 500 flips. So, and I babysat every single one of them. So I'll be happy to chat about that if I can help anybody out. We still have some of the contacts and resources and things like that, but that, again, now we're focused back on rental, changing light bulbs and toilet seats. So, okay, I think we're moving on there. So we'll next cover some of the property managers' practices, at least from our experience and what we've seen, and then try to give you a little bit of information on preventing callbacks or preventing you guys sending us out for things that aren't needed or that can be taken care of with a phone call or something like that. So property managers usually do, I shouldn't say usually, oftentimes property managers do the simple repairs with their in-house techs. They have in-house techs that go and do, again, as I mentioned, I have used that for years, the light bulbs and toilet seats thing. They send them out for those kind of things. They send us out for a little bit more complicated stuff. We can do light electrical, light plumbing, drywall repairs, stuff like that. If it's having to redo drywall that's been flood cut from a property that flooded, that's bigger than what we do ourselves. However, we do have resources still and people that we can refer, but most of the time the property managers have their own Rolodex of the bigger ticket items that they use, and it just makes sense for them to use those guys instead of go through us, who then kind of use the same guys. Yes.
Yeah, just slightly. Sorry. Yeah, slight. Thank you.
Okay. So again, middle of the road repairs would be stuff that we do. Service calls and turnovers are kind of the two things that we do. Service call is tenant calls in, garbage disposal's jammed, outlets quit working in the back half of the house, things like that. And turnovers is obviously turning the property over, getting it ready from the old tenants when they move out, getting ready for new tenants and get it rent ready. Those are the two things that we do mostly, and we do the middle of the road level on that stuff as far as, how difficult or how much work is involved, or, dollar number to be frank. The bigger stuff, as I mentioned, they send out their HVAC tech, they send out, we can change a thermostat, we can, and a lot of the stuff we have the knowledge to do that the other guys are sent out for, the specialists, so to speak, but we choose to only test, test that stuff as far as legally. I mean, it's kind of silly, but legally, you're supposed to pull a permit to change a bathroom faucet. I mean, that's black and white. That's what you're supposed to do. Well, we do that all the time. It's really a no-brainer. And we are okay with chancing on getting our hands slapped for little petty things like that every once in a while, because you rather pay us that amount of our hourly rate versus $150, $200 an hour for a plumber to do the same thing. Now, on the other hand, there's things like water heaters and complete toilet replacements. We can do those all day long, but at the same time, it's like, we do not want to get our hands slapped harder for that kind of stuff. So we kind of are fortunate enough to be able to pick and choose. And if the property managers don't have somebody else to do that stuff, we can say, hey, we can send our guys that we work with to do that, or we can get you contacts or whatever. Turnovers are busiest in the summer, spring, summer, beginning of fall, and then the winter time, things sort of slow down with the turnovers. People don't move. I mean, again, most of us were all tenants at one time, and when school starts and things like that, you kind of get rooted in, and you've been locked into a lease now for a year, starting it in the fall. So the winter times there's not a lot of activity. So service calls then is when it kind of picks up a little bit for service calls, but honestly, the winter is just winter, or excuse me, summer is summer chaos, and winter is, okay, what can we do? Let's stir some up. Let's try to make, new contacts, grow the business, grow our portfolio, et cetera. In the winter time, we also try to do preventative maintenance. Now, at one point with first rate, especially, preventative maintenance basically gets us into properties in the winter time is kind of quiet time under normal circumstances. And we just go in and look for things. I believe we have a checklist that we'll be flashing here in a minute. And we'll give you some ideas of the items that are done during a preventative maintenance, but it gives us work to do. It gives, more importantly, you guys or the owners eyeballs in their property when maybe nobody has been in there, to make sure there's not, 6 dogs, people aren't smoking, there's not a whole bunch of damage. And that way it can be nipped in the butt sooner rather than when they, call in for a service call in the springtime or whatever, because the same thing during Christmas and the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, people don't want you in their houses, so they don't call in for service calls or whatever. So again, this is preventative maintenance is a way to get in there and look at things, and that might have gone unnoticed because they're focused on Christmas gifts and Thanksgiving and if Uncle Fred's coming or not.
Yeah, one thing that's cool about that too is the more little piddly stuff we get done in between turnovers, the shorter the turnover, because turnovers can be kind of overwhelming.
Yes.
But also that's when time is really money.
Yes.
But if you've got things that you're going to fix once and they're not going to break again while the tenant's in there, if you can shorten your turnover list,
Yes.
A, everyone's busy in spring, but B, you're losing money in spring. Whereas when the tenants are in there, you're just not losing money.
Yes.
So I love
Yeah.
that strategy that you guys have.
Yeah,
Doing those maintenance checks, and we are moving into the winter season, so it's kind of time to get our checklist. So this is perfect timing.
Yes, great. Okay. So one of the things that we do or recommend or whatever is smart locks. Now, smart locks is a deadbolt or a keyed lock for an entry door. and Kwikset is the company. Is there anybody familiar with smart locks or know about smart locks? Okay, so a few of you. So we figured we'd have Kota do a quick little demonstration, but smart locks is basically a lock setup that anybody can repin the lock to a new key. The only thing is there's basically two locks, two brands of locks. There's Schlag, which the head of your key is a little triangle almost. And then there's Kwikset, which is maybe hexagon or something. And those are generally the two main types of locks. So just to be clear, Kwikset, you have to have Kwikset keys, Kwikset locks, all that. You can't repin a Schlag lock. You can't repin a Kwikset smart lock to a Schlag key. Two separate things. So we're focusing on Kwikset smart locks. But again, it saves you from, you don't have to call the locksmith to change these out. It takes a couple seconds repin and you can repin them to a new key. So between tenants, or if two brothers, get in a spat and one of them moves out and time is of the essence because it's gotten physical, these locks can be changed by anybody super quick, as long as you have the original key. So you've got to have, and by I say original, I mean just the key that currently works. So you've got to have a current working key in order to repin to another random key. So.
Yeah, so this is obviously a deadbolt, but they make them in entry knobs as well. Literally, all you do is you have your working key, you give it a quarter turn like that, and there's a little slit you can see to the left of the keyhole there. All you do is your new lock will come with this smart pen. You press it in till it clicks, pull your key out, have your new key, whichever set, and now that is your new key. They're changed.
Blank key?
No, that's just a different set,
A different cut key.
Yep.
Key from your other rental and you just switched it, so you
Yes.
didn't have to buy a bunch of new keys.
Yes.
That's exactly what we do.
Swap them,
We
yeah.
hang on to property managers. When we switch them out, we take all those old ones and make a pile and we reuse those.
Yep.
And so everybody's happy, and it's again, super easy way to
Yep.
do the lock changes. Does anybody want to see this? We could
You can
pass it around. That might be.
Yeah.
How do you prevent a deadbolt lockout?
So,
Will you pass around the two cards?
and I'm gonna try to address this and make sure that I'm answering your question. So on coming down to the next line, passage knobs accompanied with a deadbolt. So another thing we came up with was tenants were locking themselves out often. We would get these calls, shocker, but New Year's Eve, nobody wanted to be the on-call guy because it was just driving all over town, dealing with people that were, had a great time and locked themselves out of their properties. And so 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, having to go get into these properties and whatnot. Well, we came up with this idea that every entry door, so exterior door, most of them have two locks. They have a deadbolt on the top, and then they have a knob on the bottom, which is called a keyed entry knob. Well, as you're walking out the door, you turn your keyed entry knob lock, close the door, and you're out. Oh, because your buddies are picking you up. You don't have your keys with you. Oops, they're locked. Now they're locked in the house. So we said, what if we get rid of all of those? Any door that has a deadbolt and a knob, we get rid of all the keyed knobs, and we put what's called a hallway or closet knob on it. It doesn't lock, because now they pull it closed and they've got to put the key in the deadbolt and lock the door that way. So they virtually can't lock themselves out. So was that a question, or did you have something?
Yeah, what it means though,
Thank you.
for those people that don't like the inconvenience to turn a lock when they leave, they're used to using a knob and walking out and sometimes locking it.
Yep.
but for the most part, not blocking out.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'd take my chance on calling me or the owner
Uh-huh,
to let me back in like that happened yesterday,
uh-huh,
as opposed to having to turn the damn deadbolt every time I come home or every time I leave.
got it, yeah,
That is a no, that's a no-no for me.
understood.
I'm too lazy.
Yeah, and that's valid point. And for us, this was just a solution for property managers that have a whole bunch of doors that rock, paper, scissors for who's paying for the after hours locksmith call. So this just got rid of that for a lot of property managers. Some of them do it, some of them don't do it. We just mention it and explain why we feel it might be helpful. If it works, great, we'll be happy to do it. And if not, we put the key knobs.
The owner can impose that on the tenant.
Yes,
Now, what about, I have a master. I have cleaning people, I have maintenance people, they all have a master.
mhm,
So when you start changing keys
uh-huh.
because of a tenant leaving, what about my master?
Yeah, so regarding the smart lock, it cannot be pinned to a master and a regular key. It's one or the other. So that it can only be keyed to one key. So again, for people that have master locks or master keys, excuse me, that work all, and I think everybody knows what he's referring to, but basically it's one key that you assign maintenance or whoever that can get into any of the doors. But then there's also an individual key that unlocks each door separately, specific to that property. So again, for your situation, if you're, the smart lock thing wouldn't be something for obvious reasons that, I mean, you would just say, we'd say, hey, here's what we suggest. And you say, I don't like that because myself, it's too annoying to, put the key in and have to lock it. And I don't want to put the tenants through that, as well as I like to have the master key, and that's that. Most of our property managers, we check out keys if we need to get in. For what we do, probably 90% of the time, tenants meet us there. Tenants, per their request, they want to meet us there. They want to have some control. They want to make sure that we're, not quite as shady as, that people have said we are, maybe, but at any rate, so people want to meet us there. So we don't have in our customers, we haven't ever had a master key for any of the properties. And so this worked for us. So with turnovers, this is my verbiage that is kind of some slang, and Stacy loved it, which I love. So we classify turnovers in three categories. Again, is minor, enhanced, and then juicy's like, oh goodness, So and as investors, or if you have properties, you probably know exactly what we're talking about. But minor turnovers is the no-brainer stuff. Changing locks, checking smoke detectors, a handful of quick, easy. They were great tenants. They left on good terms. They had a great rental history or whatever, and so they leave the property in good condition, and those are minor. Along with checking smoke detectors, so smoke detectors, now CO detectors have come up along with smoke detectors. I don't know, it's probably 10 or 15 years now that those are very, very, very important, and there's been incidences and stuff. So there's a handful of different laws and regulations statewide versus national or whatever, as far as codes and placements and things like that. We're not experts, but we've done lots of homework and we've been in the field for a long, long time. So what our general rule of thumb is with smoke detectors and COs is You need a CO detector if the property has an attached garage, because it may have a fossil burning appliance in there, a gas water heater in the garage, for example. Obvious reasons, it's got a garage, there's a car in there, which there's been people that have left their car running on accident in the garages, so again, another reason why that's on there. So attached garage, fireplace, whether it's gas or wood burning. So those things are some of the criteria for needing CO detectors. Help me with reasons for COs. It was,
Yeah, gas fireplace, attached garage.
Gas stove.
Yep, appliances, gas
Yes.
appliances.
yeah, so
So if there's no gas to the property and if there's no attached garage, you don't need a CO.
correct. Yeah, so gas appliances, if, you know, like I said, if there's a if you look on the side of the house, we always tell the guys, check, no matter what inside, how thorough we think we are, go outside and see if there's a meter, period. If there's a gas meter, whether you found that appliance, whether it's a little small boy water heater tucked under a cabinet in a corner that's gas and we missed that or didn't see it, you check the perimeter and find there's a gas meter, that means that we need to get a CO detector in there. So we like to do one CO detector minimum per level. So if it's a 2-story house with a basement, there's going to be 3 CO detectors minimum. Smoke detectors, you want smoke detectors in every sleeping area, outside every sleeping area, and again, a minimum 1 per level. So, for example, if you have again, back to a 3-story house, and the main level is kitchen, living, and a bathroom, well, there's no sleeping areas per se in there. Well, that still gets 1 smoke detector to cover that level, even though technically there's not a sleeping area. So again, if there's questions on that, we can help give you our opinion and how the property managers and our customers like to do that kind of stuff, but
This
that's
picture on the next one.
kind of the gist of it. Oh, okay,
This is what you just described, that bottom picture.
gotcha. So yeah, so we see the obviously inside the bedroom, outside the bedroom, and then it shows what I was saying, 1 per level. Wired smoke detectors is what everybody prefers when you do, depending on a remodel you do, when you pull permits, they make you put wired in them most of the time. Again, a few years ago when we were doing the flips, we had to update things. I'm not sure how strict they are with that now, but we would have to update and put wired. Otherwise, there's just a DC, we call them hockey pucks. They're just battery, 9-volt battery only, and they make those in both smoke detectors and CO detectors. Now, one more thing going further, a little bit further into that with detectors is they make smoke detectors and CO detectors and then CO smoke combo detectors. All of those, they also make with a built-in 10-year battery. Same thing. We get called out all the time for smoke detector batteries chirping, they're on a vaulted ceiling or whatever. Well, these ones with the sealed batteries that last 10 years, supposedly you never have to touch them. We have never had problems in our experience with those, so we're pretty comfortable going with what they say, that it's 10-year life. They're a little bit more money though, and if you have a property that has 9, 10 smoke detectors or CO detectors or whatever in it, and then you want to upgrade all of those to the internal battery at $75 a whack versus $35. Well, depending on, you know, if you've had vacancies and things like that, it may not be in your budget to do those, but there are options as far as that goes. Okay, so enhanced turnover, which again,
One more thing with the smoke detectors, we recently been on the outside writing the dates on them, because on the back, it says the manufacturer date that they're good 10 years by. Just so everybody can see, we take a Sharpie and write 2020 on the outside. That way anyone can walk up and see that smoke detector is
Was
that
made
date.
in twenty
Someone
twenty.
checked. You don't have to get your ladder out and crawl up there and double check. So
Yeah, so I forgot to mention that too, I think, but smoke detectors generally have a 10-year life. Whether it's an internal battery or whether it's a 9-volt battery that you're replacing all the time or whatever, most of them have a 10-year life. They're all supposed to be dated somewhere on the detector with the year that they were made or the start of their life, so to speak, the year they were born. So what Kota was saying is we write on the outside of them the year that they were born. So another maintenance tech or whoever comes in and easily see if they can read our writing. 2020 or 2016 or again 2015, oops, that's expiring. It's at the end of its 10-year life. So we'll do that now while we're in there. Okay, back to the middle of the road turnovers or enhanced turnover. Again, just a little bit more stuff. That's kind of what our specialty is. Again, the minor turnovers, the in-house maintenance techs do those a lot. The big juicy ones, which will probably be the next slide, those we participate in, but we also are in there working around painters and flooring guys and roofers and whatever else on some of those juicier turnovers. On the juicy turnovers, again, going back to the big ticket items. As I mentioned, touched on earlier, if we send in our contacts and our guys, we're a business. We have to make money off of that. We have a small margin markup that we have to do. So we honestly encourage anybody that's comfortable, call Dillabaw's Flooring America, call Napa Floors, call whatever, and get some quotes and see if it makes sense for you guys to call out those big general tickets and take care of them yourself. And we take care of the stuff in the middle. And then again, the bigger stuff, you guys do yourself. You guys babysit or coordinate yourselves to save money. Now, some people, it's not worth it. They don't want it. They don't have the time to do so. They don't want to do so. They don't want to babysit. Again, in which case we're happy to do that. We tackle that stuff on the bigger A to Z, so to speak. So as far as on the juicy turnovers too, we're going to say juicy turnover / renovation is what's some common things that we see, and the property managers can better advise on this, but what we see brings the money is similar to houses. When we were flipping houses, the investors are like bathrooms and kitchens, spend the money on bathrooms and kitchens. So what we have found is the same thing. When property managers are recommending to owners, investors, you guys want to get rents up. Well, we need to spend some money on countertops and refacing the cabinets and maybe some backsplash, newer appliances, stuff like that. So that's where I believe the best money is spent on those stuff. And again, doing that during a turnover, it's already vacant, is ideal, but it costs money. And it may not be, if you've had some vacancies in some other units, it may not make sense and all that stuff. But again, the best money spent is stuff like that. The other thing is simpler stuff, knobs and hardware on cabinets. A lot of the apartments and stuff don't have any hardware on cabinets. Putting knobs, pulls, hinges, that's a lot cheaper than doing a whole new kitchen or whole new bathrooms. And it just adds a little bit of extra, extra appealing to the eyes when somebody's walking in to look at renting your place or another property manager's.
One more thing with the juicy, bigger renovation stuff, a common problem we see is when we're doing new flooring in there, a lot of times the old flooring may not get ripped up. They just go right over the top with new flooring. Well, that causes a couple problems. One is your doors. If you go over the top with flooring, all of a sudden the doors don't open. Then we got to go through,
They rub.
they rub. They're touching the new stuff because it's up higher. So we got to go through, cut down the doors. Also, if you're going from carpet to plank, let's say, and your baseboard's got to come down to, supplement for that gap. Now all of a sudden you got this 1/2 inch ugly gap of the paint, caulk, whatever was underneath because your baseboards are coming down. So you're gonna have to do some texture painting, or a way to get around that is do a little taller. If you're in there already, do a little taller baseboard.
Upgrade
To
your
cover.
baseboards at that time.
If you're doing that already, if they have to come out, do a little taller ones going in. So
And what Kota's talking about is on, oftentimes, especially on, mostly happens on like vinyl or so vinyl, I don't know if you guys have you seen it, but sometimes you're going like, holy smokes, this is a time capsule. There's like 4 or 5 layers of vinyl and, they just keep going over top. And then, carpet is, and if you do upgraded carpet and pad and the carpet flooring guys put the doors back on, and now all the doors are rubbing because the new carpet and pad is thicker. And the owners are like, wait a minute, now we've got to pay you guys to come in and take all the doors off, cut them down and touch up paint the bottom of them and rehang them. That's expensive. That wasn't anticipated or wasn't known when they did the upgraded, thicker, plusher flooring to try and get more for rents. So anyway, a couple of things that he was mentioning was that. And then regarding the plank, if you have carpet, like say this room that's carpet, this is not the typical, obviously, apartment style carpet, but let's say we're gonna put LVP in here. Well, the carpet and pad has, say, 3/4 of an inch. There's a 3/4 inch reveal under the baseboard to tuck that carpet in there. Well, you get rid of that carpet and pad, and now you do plank, which is a 1/4 inch. Well, now you've got to drop those baseboards down tight to the new plank, and now you have a 1/2 inch. What the heck is this? Scraped off caulking, maybe no texture, no paint on the top. That again, that has to be cleaned up, painted, and stuff like that. So that's plank has been the hot thing for upgrading properties for a while now, and it's still regularly, people are shocked. Owners are shocked when they see that. Well, how do we fix that? Or why didn't anybody tell us about that? So we try to bring that to everybody's attention. Just a couple of things to think about that you don't, because the flooring guy is not going to say anything about that. Nobody brings that up. You just, hey, I'm going to get new flooring. I got this bid for $3,500. Well, now there's another $500 or more maybe to have somebody come in and fix all that stuff. So stuff to think about. Okay, seasonal. Seasonal things, again, we're just going to give a couple things that come to mind is with seasonal stuff. And right now, since it's fall, one of the things is removing hose bibs. All winter, when winter hits, all winter long, there's calls for hose bibs leaking, hose bibs frozen, water leaking. Sounds like water's running in the crawl space, whatever. And that's because hose bibs, hoses are still connected to the frost-free hose bibs. Well, if a hose is connected to it, it can't drain down like it's supposed to and drain off. So the water stays there, it freezes, boom. The copper expands and cracks and breaks and then is oopsie. So that's very easily preventable. So that's one of the big things just that come to mind is for fall stuff. Is that another thing is that people don't know, but on rental properties, we get calls for, in our business, specifically our business, we try not to use the M word, which is mold. Okay, because you use the M word, first off, we're not licensed to determine if it's mold or not. We do mold remediation if it is determined, but we're not licensed to determine if it is. So we say the M word. When we don't say the M word, we say growth. Well, we get calls for growth around windows midwinter, nonstop. Well, what happens is the tenants close the blinds because it's winter and it's cold, and they have the furnace set at 80 degrees and outside is 30, and the windows sweat, and that creates moisture, and then there's dirt in the window tracks or whatever, and that creates food, and then there's darkness with the blinds, where the blinds are around blocking and shading around the frame of the windows on the windowsills, and then the blinds are closed, so there's no airflow. So all of those combined create the M word, or growth. And all you have to do is open the blinds or open the curtains or open this every once in a while, get some airflow in there, get some light in there. And for goodness sakes, don't be afraid to wipe your windowsills when they're, full of dust every now and then. So anyway, those are a couple things for fall that come to mind that we like to bring up.
You might put the slide, because we just did fall, and that's good.
So I'm ahead of it.
You're ahead of.
I'm predicting the next slide. Tenant education. Another thing that we try to do, which, Stacey, how am I doing on time?
You can go a little faster, but you're doing okay.
Okay, so
Did someone have a question? I heard a hand.
I almost slow things in.
Oh, no, we don't have to hurry that much. I just want to make sure everyone gets their questions.
So like on your hose bib, so are you just telling the tenant to take off the hose, or you putting hose bib on something?
Yeah, no, all we recommend, and again, this is the property manager side of things. You let the tenants know, hey, most of the tenants, like, to be honest, First Rate is just that. They are top notch. They have most everything dialed in, figured out. I would guess that they have somebody or an email or something that goes out with a list of some of the things I just mentioned and says, hey, it's fall, or it's gonna be turning 32 degrees or whatnot. Make sure all your hoses are disconnected. Check your furnace and make sure that the heater works before it's time to need it, before it's that cold. Test it now. That way, if there's a problem, we can get it fixed. So I'm guessing that that's probably how it's handled from the property manager side. On the other,
What block?
They have locks you can put on your hose bib.
a lock for
Put a
the,
lock on it.
yeah, basically, yeah. We put a lock on there so they can't use it.
So it can't be turned on in winter? Oh, okay.
Can't use the hose bib in it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's inconvenient because you gotta put it on and take it off, and I appreciate the fact, you're like, say, educational piece, email, change your filters, take off your hose bibs. Don't use,
open your blinds.
Don't use ice, or don't use salt on your driveway,
Mhm.
or whatever your list is.
Mhm.
But to get somebody to actually
Do
read
it.
it, understand it, and
Yeah.
do it, like, it's can be two different things. It
Yeah.
might work on 80% of the time, but 20% is where you're getting the problem.
Bingo. And owners too, a lot of owners don't have the ability to do their own drive-bys every once in a while, but that's, hugely encouraged if it's an option, because you have a property management company, they do great, whatever. Sometimes they miss stuff. They put that notice out. Well, then they send one of their techs to go do a drive-by to make sure everything looks good at the property, and they didn't see the hose bib. Honestly, like the backyard, for example, how is anybody gonna see that from a drive-by? So whether you're an owner or whoever driving by, you're not gonna see that. So some of the stuff you can't prevent. You can't, like Stacey and I were saying, you can't make people smart. You give them all the information and tell them what to do, and try to help to make sure there's no problems. But if they choose not to, then we deal with those,
When you get your drone up.
with those,
Yeah.
with those problems, yeah. Tenant education, we try to communicate with tenants. We get calls all the time. I mentioned at the very beginning where the outlets in the back of the house don't work. The disposal hums. So we make those calls. We get a work order, say from First Rate. We call the tenant, hey, we got to work with your disposals humming. Have you looked inside, down inside? Have you checked the reset button? Have you try to give them a quick little education on those? And probably 50% of the time, we're able to walk the tenant through it and they fix it, and they don't pay us to make the phone call. They don't pay us for a service call. They don't whatever. So again, as an owner, the same sort of thing. If you guys are managing your own properties, there's a lot of that useful information that you guys can be volunteering to the tenants within reason. Same thing with GFCIs. If a GFCI is tripped, the outlets aren't working. Okay, do you have an outlet with push buttons in it? Go push the buttons and see if that changes anything. So we try to do our best to communicate to get the tenants to take care of that silly stuff. Okay, moving along.
Would you back up to the tips for the bath sink drain?
Yeah, so drains, bathtubs and vanities sinks. Okay, those two clogs happen all the time. Home Depot makes these plastic sticks with fish hooks on them that you can basically, let me back up. Most of those clogs are caused by hair, not from us. Okay, from the beautiful ladies' hairs that happens in the tubs or in the sinks or whatever. And that can easily be remedied with those little zip things. So again, instead of sending a $200 plumber out, that's basically going to do the same thing. Those little zip things are can work wonders if that's an option and something that you wanted to explore. So is that?
So this is preventative or benefit?
So that probably corrective, because the problem has already happened. You're not going to, most people are really like everything else. If it's not broke, they're not going to fix it. So preventative for us smart people and the tenants that are, willing to listen and go the extra mile and take care of the property like it's their own. But realistically, it's how to fix it once there is a problem.
But as an owner, you can ask for, when you have a turnover, you can ask for your property manager when they have a tech in there to please zip the drains while they're in there at the
Yeah,
turnover.
and that's one of the standard things on our turnover punch list that we get. We're told what to do by the property managers. They send us a list on the turnover or service call. Here's the problems. Please do this, handle it this way, da, 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 da. So it really dumbs it down for us and makes sure everybody's on the same page. And on that list, on that maintenance list or on that turnover list, drains is on everybody's list. We go through and we clean out drains so that they're fresh from the old tenants to the new tenants. Real quick, the zip washer hoses into place. Drain hoses, you have the drain hose and your two supply lines on behind your washing machine. Drain hoses come out. There's a lot of pressure when you drain that washer. Those come out oftentimes. And then well, that water is, if you have an upstairs laundry room especially, is a big oops. But anyways, a common practice to do that is just to take a zip tie and zip tie all three of those hoses together. You just cinch up a zip tie, and then it doesn't allow that U-shaped hose to come out of that of the drain. So that's what that's in reference to. And I apologize for not being super thorough. I'm trying to just hit some of the points and move on. So if you see something on there like this young lady did, bring it up and we'll try to help and explain it. Otherwise, we're moving on. Okay. Going back to the preventative maintenance, another point that I didn't mention was with the preventative maintenance, it also helps jog tenants' memory. Hey, we have Property Maintenance Plus scheduled to come into your property to do some preventative maintenance. Oh, you know what? While they're here, the bathroom door hasn't latched for 3 months and I keep forgetting about it, but can they look at that too? So it brings stuff up like that, or more importantly, oh gosh, under the bathroom sink, it's sagging and I keep forgetting to bring it up. I just covered it with a towel, can they have a peek at that? So, the damage to the property versus again, some of the other stuff. So the preventative maintenance serves a lot of different purposes. Okay, preventative maintenance checklist. This is a sample checklist. We've had many of them. Again, property managers, owners, whoever like certain things checked. Sometimes there's unique things to the property they want checked out. But anyways, here's just a generic thing for preventative maintenance in the off season. Drywall, obviously checking for, growth again, and holes or damage or issues, things like that, on and on and on. So those are some of the items that we look for when we do our preventative maintenance. Again, this isn't everything. This was just one list that we came up with for one property manager, but to kind of give you guys an idea of how that might look. Springtime. In the wintertime, sprinklers are blown out here in Idaho, or they should be blown out. And there's a lot of care taken to that and make sure all the water's out and make sure the valves are left cracked open and da. But in the springtime, we found that the guys go out there, they close the valves, they turn the sprinklers on and skedaddle. Well, there's little sprinkler trolls that come in the winter and mess up the adjustment of the sprinkler heads. And I'm being silly, but that's what I call it, because it's like, how did all these get so out of whack? Well, with sprinklers being out of adjustment, spraying on siding, in a hurry, the siding swells and then it goes behind the siding, and then it creates problems again with growth and OSB. And we do siding repairs all the time that could have been prevented if somebody would have just made a quick little turny adjustment to where the spray pattern is on the sprinkler. So suggestion, when you have these guys turn your sprinklers on for the season, ask them if they adjust and make sure all the heads are spraying properly, have the proper spray pattern, and are not spraying up onto pillars or siding or whatever it is that you don't want sprayed. And again, it causes tons of damage that can be prevented easily. So make sure you guys are asking for that stuff. Turnovers, again, I kind of went over that. Turnovers are mostly busy in the summertime, spring, fall, and spring, summer, fall, and service calls are all throughout the year. Gutters. So gutters, people don't realize, again, especially owners that are not living at the house, where the water trails are going and what's happening. But the same thing, gutters they're expensive, but they prevent a whole lot more expensive problems most of the time. So they get water away from the house. The downspouts divert the water away from your crawl spaces, because if not, and the crawl spaces get water, and then the M word again quickly develops. So gutters, we can't say enough about gutters, because we fix stuff all the time because there's no gutters or they're not functioning properly or whatever. There's one of those things that gets taken for granted and people overlook. But make sure you have gutters where they're needed and that they're working the way that they're supposed to, doing what they're supposed to. Okay. So anyway, with all that said, again, I kind of rattled on a little bit as Stacy told me I would, and I was like, no, I'll be done in like 15 minutes and then what? But anyway, I appreciate everybody coming out. Again, if there's any questions or whatnot that we can help, we'd be happy to. If I think we have a slide with our phone number and stuff
Yeah,
coming up. Okay.
but before we go to that, let's do a summary.
Okay,
And
that's
then
right.
we'll
Yeah,
open
yeah,
it up for questions and conversation or experiences, if you've had an experience with a whatnot. But let's do this summary and
Recap it and then get to the fun stuff. Okay, stopping the screen share. All right, get on in here, Kota. Real tight, real close. Okay, guys, AVID Investors, we have Dom and Kota from Property Maintenance Plus, and they are the experts. They see what every property management company in town, or at least the ones they work with, does to protect your investment. Whether it's a rental or the one you live in, these properties need a little bit of attention. So number one, come up with a plan. It's fall, time to blow out those sprinklers. And when we do, if there's tenants, let's send them an email and remind them to change their furnace filters, remind them a few tips. And on that plan, let's get a little checklist together. I've had one, you've had one, and it's dusty and lost. But winter is the season for preventative maintenance. Everyone's a little bit less busy and hectic, and it's better than doing it while you have the time ticking away at your vacancy. Water alarms and smoke detectors not only help prevent big losses, well, they save lives, and they're a huge liability. So don't forget to get yourself one of these little water alarms. This is what it looks like. For big trades, if you want to save money, the best money saved is calling the big trades yourself, but then call P&P for the middle items, and then the piddly items you can do, or you can have a honeydew. But when you're planning, your best money spent is on your kitchens, your bathrooms, and your updates. And the best money saved is on those hot tips they shared. So that's minding your different heights of flooring so you don't create a whole baseboard project for yourself. Adjusting sprinkler heads regularly so you're not accidentally destroying your siding at the beauty of green lawn. Zipping drains if you want to do it when it's needed or even in advance. And most importantly, monitoring moisture. And that includes diverting water away from your home. With a little attention like that, you can save thousands on your maintenance expenses and boost your ROI on your rentals. Thank you, Dom. Thank you, Kota.
Thank you.
Good job.